Thank you very much for all of you for attending this presentation. Good morning for the European attendances and good afternoon from those coming from China. Also, I would like to thank the organizing committee for being able to have this opportunity to present all the information on pre-demolition audits and the commercialization strategy that is being followed in the European Union market. And as you can see, my name is Alfonso Arevalillo and I'm part of Tecnalia. Tecnalia is one of the main research and development centers in Europe. We are the fifth at European level and we are the first one at national level. And also we go and we try to be in close contact with industry during all the different parts of the life cycle of a product, from the development and validation throughout research activities to the conformity assessment, the quality assurance, the commercialization part, during the service of the product, assessing the service life, and also being able to extend this service life in many cases due to the diagnosis and pathologies and failure analysis, and during the end of life. That is something that we are going to center our talk today, as we are going to see the possibilities to enhance the recyclability and the commercialization of products coming from construction and demolition waste. Here we have the different research lines that we treat. In the end, we need to consider that circular economy is a totally transversal line in here, and we are applying it for the different parts that could be smart eco-materials, smart building, energy in buildings and cities, resilience and climate change, urban and territorial transformation, healthy cities, urban mobility, or smart infrastructures. All these activities are highly aligned with the different objectives of the United Nations for sustainability. And you can see here on the right, the ones that we feel that all these activities are more close to and that help to get them. If we go on the content itself, we will divide the presentation on a first part presenting the guidelines for the weight audit before demolition and renovation works. Then we will get into the market access and the best way to introduce the circularity in the with CE marking of construction products. And finally, we will go on how we can evolve from these procedures to digitalize and automatize these parts. And for that, we will talk of the RECONMATIC project. That is a project that has recently started in July and where different partners from European Union, United Kingdom and China are involved. If we consider the circular economic package, this is a European Union, let's say somehow roadmap or so that has been supported by different actions. The ones that are defined as direct actions and that they are somehow going directly into the processes, and the ones that are more to support the research and development to ease the possibility to perform these actions in a best way or to ease the commercialization of the different products. Like that, we have as direct actions mainly from 2016, the European Union Construction and Demolition Waste Management Protocol that goes more into the development of the demolition and construction and demolition protocols and how to get everything in there implemented so that the recoveries are maximized. And then we go into the guidelines that really are preliminary audits in somehow, because what they do is before going into the demolition work or before going into the renovation work, they need to predict the residues that will be obtained and the best way to have them sorted and then recycled or reused. And if we go into the indirect actions, we have mainly research and development that has been promoted. And this topic has been a topic included in all the different framework programs, from the SIS framework program to the Horizon Europe, that is the one running now. And you can see at the bottom several projects that are being, that has finished or are running at the moment, including, as I said before, the RECONMATIC project. If we center in the guidelines for the waste audit, that is the part that we are focusing in this talk, we need to know that the auditing process aims to deliver such documents that the owner can submit a demolition or renovation permit application and open a call for tenders. These waste audit findings should support and will support the decision of the authorities to approve the planned work and will represent also a key issue for statistics and reporting, including all the part of the statistics to define the rate of materials recovered or materials recycled. That is an objective not only at the European level, but in any country. The preliminary audit or the guideline for the waste audit include these steps that you can see here. From the desk study, where you get all the documentation possible, maintenance protocols, and every information available, and you study it. From this information, you extract some preliminary information that has to be confirmed and also, well, get all the information needed to perform the inventory of materials during the site visit. The inventory of materials in the end is totally aligned with the waste classification promoted by the European Union, but that at different countries, you have very similar regulations with very similar classification of materials. So everything that we are talking here is fully implementable in other countries as well. Also, this preliminary audit or this waste audit will include the management recommendations, considering not just the legal requirements, but also other possible requirements and needs in order to recommend the best way to manage these waste materials that has been found. And finally, everything should be well reported and well used for the different stakeholders, for the building owner, for the authorities, etc. But of course, there is a transversal activity to all these steps that in the end is that to ascertain that all the process follows some quality systems and that there is a quality assurance mechanisms for all this process. If we go in a bit more detail in each of the steps, we can see here that we have the desk study that is to gather all the relevant information from the documentation of the building or other work to be performed. And the outcome should be to collect as much information as available to plan correctly the site visit and to produce a first draft of possible materials and uncertainties. And also should be part of the report or be annexed to this final report that we have talked before. It is important, for example, to identify different aspects that could be age of the building or infrastructure, or the design documents, etc. And of course, if it is possible to predict the presence of any hazardous materials, it is important to report it, because it will imply also different requirements in order to ascertain a secure site visit and also a correct waste management. If we consider the inventory of materials and elements, we need to think that this is the core part of all this process, because in the end, what we want to get is this inventory of elements and materials and define in these elements which ones are contaminated or not, if they are reusable or not, and also for all those elements that are not directly reusable and that have to be dismantled as elements, we need to identify the different materials contained in the elements, and not only that, but also the different materials on their own, in order to find also if they are hazardous or not, and if they are recyclable or not. Because in the end, what we want to do is to perform the waste management in such a way that we are maximizing the reuse and recycling possibilities and avoiding backfilling, landfilling, or energy recovery operations. And of course, something that is very important and that I want to point out again is that hazardous materials should be considered explicitly, as each country has the regulations on how to treat them and on the different precaution measures to take when handling them. Here you just have an example of a template for this procedure, and you can see that this one is for elements. In the next one, we have for materials, including the amounts, where it's located in the building, and also important, the possible outlets and the recommended outlets, and also the precautions to take during the deconstruction phase. All these parts in here are not mandatory in general on the waste audit, but are highly recommendable to perform because it will help and it will really is the objective of the waste audit. If we go into the waste management, this again is on voluntary basis, but in the end is something that gives a lot of value to all the stakeholders because you are recommended which is the best way to reuse, recycle, or what to do with your material. And also it will identify the locations for the different containers, or it will also help in defining the best way to perform the demolition activity or the renovation activity, making sure that all the materials are sorted in the best way possible. Finally, when considering the quality assurance and the quality assessment of this process, we need to consider two parts, the traceability and the requirements that the auditor needs to fulfill. If we start from the auditor, we need to ascertain that they are skilled personnel with adequate background and specific training on the activities that they have to perform. Also, of course, they should be independent and follow ethic codes and issues as could be, for example, insurances. And if we go into traceability, it is important to define that there will be 3 stages in the end. An initial assessment that will be the result of this pre-demolition waste audit. A verification after sorting, this is after the building has been renovated or demolished, and you have all the quantities that has been extracted from the building. We have to compare those quantities with the initial assessment, and those quantities will be reported on the on-site waste management report. And finally, we need to compare the quantities that get to the final verification at the management process, and this will be with the quantities that are reused on site and the quantities that get to waste management facilities. And in there, it is important again to report all those quantities and compare them with both the initial assessment and with the assessment after sorting. And all this should be compared and any difference found or any deviation reported and justified. Once again, we are providing a template that has been extracted from the waste audit guideline. And in this template, you in the end have all the information that I have mentioned before. If we center in the reporting, as I said, all the process has to be reported. I won't go in detail in all the different parts, but in general, have the scope of the report that is mandatory to be included in this report, the summary of the waste audit, once again mandatory. Then we have the inventory of materials, also mandatory, but that it can include other parts, not just the mandatory ones, that they will be in a voluntary basis, that are the one with a yellow background. Then the inventory of elements, it is voluntary. The inventory of materials, no. Any waste audit has to include or has to have as an output the inventory of materials, but the inventory of elements is on a voluntary basis, but highly recommendable. Then also the waste management recommendations, that's they are optional, but once again, highly recommendable. And the quality assessment and what has been performed to ascertain the quality of the process, that is a mandatory part. With all this, and once we apply the guidelines, we will have all the information to be able to sort of the materials generated in our work. And why is it important to do this? Well, it is important to perform this because in general, all the studies and all the assessments show that the highest the purity of the material, the easier it is then to have it introduced in the market. Excuse me. But even with the more pure materials, there are still difficulties to get in the market. And what we are showing now is different ways and what we consider that is the easier way to introduce one of these innovative materials into the European Union market. I think that all of you are aware that the European Union construction market is a highly traditional market where all the materials are have their CE marking, and usually in any website, one of the first things that they ask for is the CE marking and the performance assessment associated to this CE marking. If we consider normal materials and any material covered by an harmonized standard, we need to know that those materials need to have or must have this CE marking. But many harmonized standards don't include innovative materials or recycled materials. For example, if we consider construction and demolition waste and the use for aggregates, this use is covered by an harmonized standard, and therefore the CE marking will be mandatory. But if we are considering for other uses that could be additives or so on, this use is not covered. And in this case, what can we do? Well, the thing is to go through the European Organization for Technical Assessment. The European Organization for Technical Assessment includes several assessment bodies, several technical assessment bodies. This is TAB for the initial letters for technical assessment bodies. And there are several of these technical assessment bodies from each of the countries. For instance, Tecnalia is one of these technical assessment bodies, and we are one of the 3 technical assessment bodies for Spain. If we go with a material or with a product that is not covered by an harmonized standard to a technical assessment body, for example, in this case, it would be to Tecnalia, what Tecnalia will do in this case will be to assess the product, find a definition that suits this, and start all the route to get a voluntary CE marking via ETA, that is a European Technical Assurance Document or assessment document that allows the free trade of construction products throughout the European Union. And it also allows differentiation and positioning in the European market. In addition, product evaluation by a third party generates confidence in the declared performance. How we take into account the fact that it's a material or product coming from construction and demolition waste. In the end, the final construction product, including construction and demolition waste and raw material, or the reused construction product, must provide the same, or if possible, better performance than the original product. If relevant, also, we need to assess the emissions and release of dangerous substances. We need to consider that we are using materials that are coming from residues, that these residues could be contaminated or not. So all this has to be considered, and if relevant, consider all that, the emission and release of dangerous substances. And also, we need to include not only the performance of the product, but to consider the factory production control. That is the other basic component of the CE marking, and will set demanding milestones in the control of the viability of the construction, demolition waste and raw material, as it is the only way to ensure that the declared performance is maintained during the time, and irrespective of the origin and variability in the composition of the raw material. And therefore, the pre-demolition audit that we have been talking before, the selective demolition, the selective dismantling, the selective sorting, and the traceability issues are key points for the assessment of this kind of raw materials, as they will ascertain and they will ease this factory production control that is mandatory in order to get the CE marking. Here you can find a couple of examples of European technical assessment documents that has been issued by different technical assessment bodies. The first one you can find that is for recycled clay masonry units. And on the second one, you can see that is to use additives from bitumen granules made from recycled bituminous roofing felt as additives for new asphalt production. In each of them, you will find that the description of the construction product and the raw material, it includes the part that it is a raw material coming from residues or construction demolition waste, and that it will be used for an application that is not covered by any harmonized standard. As we have seen, both the guidelines and the CE marking can allow to introduce new materials into the market, irrespectively of which country of the European Union we are going to. But this process and construction is, in general, quite conservative, and anyway, very traditional. But we need to also change this and ease these procedures so that digitalization and automatization of all the processes and on most of the activities can be issued so that the sector is more competitive. This is being performed at the moment in construction sector, for example, with industrial construction or advanced manufacturing techniques, or even with the BIM information, the building information modeling, or BIM, that is being more and more used in the different buildings. And in order to do so, one of the approaches has been the RECONMATIC approach. As I say, RECONMATIC is a project that has been funded by European Union, and then it has been presented for funding also in the United Kingdom and China, and there are also partners from both United Kingdom and China. Also, UCRI has already provided finance for the United Kingdom partners, and Chinese partners are still waiting for this finance, but all the process is going on. During this project, we will deal with several technologies from digital twin, blockchain-based applications, construction products routing, precision prefabrication, effective sorting, automation and robotics, etc. All of them in different technology readiness levels, and therefore closer to be used by the market or a bit more separate. But all this, the objective and the final objective is to ascertain a smooth and rapid adoption by all stakeholders in the construction sector. The project itself has been divided in several work packages in order to assess this, and the two main ones for the objective of this talk are Work Package 3 and Work Package 5. In Work Package 3, we are dealing with the automatization and effective ways of performing this waste audit, and also the demolition or renovation activities. While in the Work Package 5, we are dealing with the new materials and how to get digitized solutions and how to ease these decision-making mechanisms to identify the best possible route. If we go into a bit more detail on Work Package 3, please note that there is an error in this part here, because even though they are free tasks, the test is repeated in both of them. But in general, what we intend is to try to get a digital twin of a structure at the end of service life. This is relatively easy for new buildings because BIM is highly implemented and almost all the information is there. But this is not the same for all buildings, and therefore we have to make sure that we are able to get all these 2D plans and information on paper that is included in an automated way into a 3D model. This will be complemented with all the information regarding the different materials and also all the information available from different sources, research project included, showing the different evolution of the properties of the materials during the service life. So that if we cross the age of the building, the location, the environmental conditions with this database, we will be able to somehow infer or get a first idea on the properties of these materials. And also we will have a database to, this is that. And then finally, we will be able to ease, and this will also be with the help of Work Package 5, to ease the decision-making process or to ease the definition of the different routes to reuse or recycle this material. This is also part of Work Package 5, and in Work Package 5 that we are treating more with market, what we have is that first of all, we are selecting the highest added value solutions for construction demolition waste, including the possible extension of the service life of the element or material, and also the reuse recycle strategy that is best from a techno-economical point of view, and also that it will be easier to implement at commercial level. And this will be done with some sort of database and a preliminary version of a tool that is able to match all the information and predict the best routes, so that then the auditor, or in the end, the one executing the works is able to decide the best one. Then all this will be integrated into the general model that is being set during the project for all the construction sector. And also with all this information and with the quality assurance mechanisms of the different actors included, we will have to see the best way to overcome the barriers to introduce new products into the market, that in many occasions are related with the lack of confidence of the final user. And in order to ascertain the quality and to get this confidence from the final user, one of the routes in the end is certification. But as I said before, for certification, it is important to know the product performance, but also to ascertain the quality and to ascertain the homogeneity. And for that, it is for what we are developing also a digitized quality control and quality assurance, that it will be implemented in a demo case in Spain, so that should validate these procedures. Well, and this is everything that I wanted to present you. And just as a quick summary, we need to consider that in order to be able to get into the market, it is highly important, first of all, to have the materials as pure as possible. So it is important to perform the preliminary audit or similar mechanisms in order to identify all the materials and be able to pre-define or pre-plan the sorting activities that will be needed. It is important to ascertain the quality of the materials when as raw material and when used in different products, so that the market can have enough confidence and we are able to introduce all these materials into the market. And for that, I want to point once again that CE marking is a very good option. And for those materials that are not able to go through the mandatory part because they are not covered by an harmonized standard, you have the possibility to come to Tecnalia or any other technical assessment body in order to start a voluntary basis CE marking. And finally, that we continue working with the help of many other partners, including some that have been present in this event, and also thanks to the organization that is also present in the RECONMATIC project, that what tries to do is that to go beyond the state of the art and to try to ease all these mechanisms so that they are performed in a more automated way. And that was all I wanted to say. Well, thank you very much for attention. And if you have any question, I'm sure that we will be able to discuss them during the question and answer section, or if not, you can contact me directly in my email that you can see here. Thank you very much.